On May 25, 2025, a train carrying 32 containers left western China for the Central Asian desert. Its destination was Iran. The journey covered 10,000 kilometers, crossing Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan to the Iranian border. By moving entirely by rail, the shipment bypassed coastal ports and maritime insurance protocols, where Western sanctions are strictly enforced, avoiding traditional choke points monitored by the U.S. Navy. This path is built for speed. The containers reach their destination in 15 days, less than half the time required for a traditional sea voyage. The tracks lead directly into Tehran, providing a consistent supply line for a nation currently under heavy international pressure. This single journey demonstrates that an alternative trade route, functioning independently of traditional maritime hubs, is now a physical reality. This Iranian line is one component of a larger trans-Asian network designed to connect China to the Middle East and Europe. To understand this desert bypass, look at this narrow waterway. Even with domestic production and inland pipelines from Russia, a blockade here would leave China's transportation sector facing a severe and immediate fuel deficit. Beijing recognizes that directly contesting American naval supremacy in the open ocean is an unwinnable scenario. The alternative is to step away from the water. By constructing a secure overland supply chain, they remove the naval variable from the equation. Securing this massive Eurasian land bridge required a willing partner at the western end, making Iran the essential anchor point. Geographically, Iran holds massive domestic oil reserves and sits directly adjacent to the Strait of Hormuz, offering raw energy resources exactly where the rail line terminates. Politically, Tehran has lived under heavy U.S. sanctions for decades. They share an immediate, pressing need to bypass Western economic controls. Because the oceans remain firmly under American jurisdiction, China engineered a permanent physical connection across terrain where foreign naval fleets cannot reach. Laying track for this route meant pushing through some of the harshest geography on Earth, spanning deep deserts, active seismic zones, and mountain ranges with temperatures that fatigue solid metal. Construction forced isolated crews to perform grueling manual labor, dragging heavy infrastructure across hundreds of miles of barren landscape. The engineering challenges extended beyond the climate. The railway systems in China and the Central Asian states operate on different track widths. This technical diagram demonstrates the mechanical solution at the borders. Rather than halting the trains to unload cargo, the axle automatically shifts its width to accommodate the differing gauges in real time. As the tracks cross into Iranian territory, long stretches of the railway are deliberately routed deep underground. These tunnels add massive expense to the project, but they provide hard protection against potential Western air raids targeting the infrastructure. The defensive architecture suggests this railway was designed to maintain trade during an active conflict, regardless of the financial cost. The Malacca Strait is a physical bottleneck, but the United States controls a second, invisible choke point that governs global trade. Through its oversight of the international financial system, Washington dictates global compliance without ever deploying a military unit. Tehran experienced this firsthand when Iranian banks were severed from the SWIFT messaging network, effectively blocking their ability to sell oil on the open market. Financial isolation crashes domestic currencies, drives extreme inflation, and suffocates the local economy. Economic sanctions are a devastating tool, but they only exert pressure if the target nation relies on the Western banking network to function. By purchasing Iranian oil directly and settling the payments in Chinese yuan, Beijing bypasses the sanctions apparatus. Cutting the dollar out of these international energy contracts attacks the foundation of American financial leverage. The economic gravity of the global energy trade is slowly migrating away from Wall Street and toward Eastern hubs. This parallel system is steadily expanding. Facing their own sanctions, nations like Russia are increasingly abandoning the dollar to process their major exports. And just like the Desert Railway, they are forcing physical infrastructure into extreme global territories to keep these alternative trade routes open. Every trainload of cargo paid for in yuan removes another transaction from the Western banking system, eroding the reach of American financial influence. The next phase involves extending these lines through northern Afghanistan, creating a new logistical hub that secures a direct overland path to the Persian Gulf. These rail lines are creating a shift in Central Asia, a region that previously functioned within the economic orbits of Russia and the West. To reduce reliance on any single trade corridor, China is also developing a maritime alternative to the south. Working with Russia, they are using nuclear icebreakers to maintain a shipping lane through the Arctic, aiming to keep the route open year-round. This northern path bypasses the Suez Canal, a route that is geographically narrow and politically sensitive. By sailing through the Arctic, ships stay safely within Russian waters, avoiding the maritime zones typically patrolled by the U.S. Navy and its NATO allies. Commercial container traffic is already utilizing these waters, assisted by specialized tugs and icebreaking fleets. The geography offers a significant shortcut. A journey from Asia to Europe via the North Pole is roughly 8,000 kilometers shorter than the path through the Indian Ocean. By utilizing the Eurasian steppe and the northern ice, Beijing is building multiple layers of redundancy into its international trade. These new corridors are not without challenges. Moving freight across thousands of miles of track is significantly more expensive than ocean shipping. The capacity of a single train, shown here in the smaller bar, cannot compete with the sheer volume of a modern supertanker. Fixed infrastructure is also inherently vulnerable to border disputes, regional conflict, and physical sabotage. Recent attacks on Iranian energy and transport hubs illustrate the risks of relying on fixed ground-based infrastructure in volatile regions. However, these routes do not need to replace the ocean to be effective. Their existence alone provides an alternative to the established maritime order. These corridors represent the first physical foundations of an alternative trade network, one that functions independently of established maritime centers. This growing logistical grid, made of rail lines, inland ports, and Arctic lanes, is designed to withstand external economic pressure. On one side is a system built on the US dollar and traditional naval choke points. On the other is a developing network using regional currencies and overland corridors. The objective is economic security, ensuring that trade and energy continue to flow regardless of Western policy or naval positioning. The strategic competition of this century is shaped by logistics and infrastructure. To understand the systems shaping our world,